excited to be here. I'm excited by all the progress, in particular the progress towards the API. And Sue, I was very impressed with the progress you're making at Tattersalls. I first worked with Peter Galuli, the former chairman, back in 1997, 20 years ago, on innovative internet concepts back then, a little bit early. I'm very happy to see the industry starting to catch up with some of those visions from that time. One thing I noticed is that when we talk about regulated games, we tend to think inside of a bubble. We tend to think inside of a bubble of regulation that makes us feel that somehow we're immune to the dynamics outside of the regulated game sphere, and that's simply not the case. In fact, the regulations sometimes give us a blind spot that causes us to miss major trends that are happening in the rest of the entertainment world. Remember, regulated games are a subset of interactive entertainment. And what I want to talk to you about today are broader trends in interactive entertainment, and in particular, how interactive entertainment is transforming customer expectations. It's actually changing your customer. And if you want to understand that, what we need to do is take a look at the iPhone decade. You see, this year, the iPhone will be 10 years old. Now, last December, a lot of pundits were talking about the demise of Apple. You read that everywhere. People were starting to worry about the stock price. They thought Apple had lost their ability to innovate and so forth. I have news for you. The experts, the pundits, they were wrong. Because in the beginning of this year, Apple revealed that they in fact had experienced record sales of the iPhone. It's not the first year they've done that. In fact, Apple has done this regularly for the past 6 years. They have exceeded every record in sales of mobile smartphones. For the past 6 years, they succeeded in an improbable trifecta of increasing price, increasing profit margin, and increasing market share on an aging computer product. No other computer company has ever done this in history. Apple has done it for 6 years in a row. And in case you think this is a trend they cannot sustain, let me point out that that dark blue bar at the end of the chart shows a record of 78 million units sold for the iPhone last year. This year, we already know through leaks, Apple has ordered 160 million OLED screens for the 10th anniversary phone. 160 million screens. I think Apple has big plans for this year. The Apple is also absorbing all of the profit in the smartphone business. The only other company who makes smartphones that makes a profit is Samsung. All the other manufacturers, Sony, ZTE, HTC, Lenovo, and so forth, all of those other companies, they don't make a profit. Most of them lose money on smartphones. Apple has absorbed all of the profit in that space. And a lot of people, when they think about Apple, their thinking stops there. They think about the iPhone. It's an incredible success story. It's the world's first trillion-dollar product. Apple has sold more than 1 billion of them in 10 years. But what's more important than that is with all of their other devices, the tablets, the computers, the smartwatches, and so forth, with all the other devices, they have a universe now of about 1.7 billion devices. And by the end of this year, they will easily exceed the 2 billion mark. Now, all of those devices are connected to the Apple ecosystem. And in a moment, I'm going to explain to you why that is so very important for this industry. But first, let me show you something, because I want to make sure that you don't get the impression this is a talk about Apple. It's not. I'm just starting there. What's happened in the iPhone decade isn't limited to Apple. This is a chart that shows you the top companies by market capitalization in 2006, the year before Apple introduced the iPhone. So in 2006, the top companies ranked by market capitalization were mostly energy companies like ExxonMobil. There was only one technology company on the list. It was Microsoft. And then General Electric is a conglomerate. That was number 2. That was in 2006. Now, 10 years after the iPhone decade, after the first decade of smartphones, of really modern smartphones, look at how this chart has transformed. These are the current top companies ranked by market capitalization, beginning with Apple and Alphabet, formerly Google, then Microsoft, Amazon, there's Exxon, and Facebook. Although Exxon fluctuates depending on the price of oil, that value goes up and down. Now, what I want to point out to you about this amazing chart is that not only are the top companies all technology companies, but this chart's from last year. This year, all of those valuations have increased. In other words, the trend is continuing. And look at how big the gap is between the valuations this year versus the valuations 10 years ago, before the iPhone decade. So this is a remarkable transformation that has implications that extend across every industry. What these companies are doing, the technology companies, are building invisible information empires that span telecommunications networks. They are building businesses at planetary scale. on top of the mobile network, because nowadays just about everybody who can afford it has a mobile phone, has a smartphone. These companies are able to reach them. They're able to transcend barriers of language, national boundaries, and legal systems. These companies operate in every territory on the planet except North Korea. And the way Apple monetizes this, and the way they preserve their ridiculous profit margins on their hardware, is through software. In particular, software sales through the iTunes Store, the App Store, and other software sales and mobile payments. So iTunes Store is a key component of Apple's value. What a lot of people don't realize about Apple is that they're gradually turning into a software company. We're so mesmerized by the phenomenon of the iPhone that we fail to recognize that the #2 source of revenue for Apple today is software. They sell more software, they sell more through the App Store and through the iTunes Store than they sell of all their computers, or of all their tablets, or all their iPads, and so forth. All that other stuff is secondary. So the #2 revenue source after the iPhone for Apple is software sales. They are turning into a digital services company. That revenue line has been growing better than 25% a year for the past 6 years, and it will continue to do so. This year, Apple gave guidance that they expect that number to double in the next 2 years, or the next 4 years, by 2020. If you were to break out software sales and digital services from Apple's total revenue picture and list that company separately, in 2015, iTunes would have been ranked number 150 in the Fortune 500 in terms of top-line revenue, $21 billion. That was in 2015, and that would have put them ahead of major retail chains like Kohl's, Dollar General, Starbucks, Gap, Office Depot, and many, many others. Apple's already given us guidance that this year they expect that top-line revenue for services to exceed $40 billion. And that'll put them in the top 100. Just software sales. I'm not talking about the Apple physical retail store. I'm not talking about Apple's iPhone business. This is just their digital services business. And this trend is fueling the growth of Microsoft, Amazon, and every other company that is in the technology space. This focus on the rapid rise of digital services. Now, I need to tell you, there's a big transformation in the consumer, the people who are buying things in these digital stores. They've got a completely different set of expectations. It's safe to say that the smartphone has transformed us. It's changed the way we approach the world. There are an awful lot of people using smartphones today. Last year, we crossed an important threshold. Now, half of the population of the planet is using the internet. And 2/3 of that group uses a smartphone to connect to the internet. By 2020, that number will be 5 billion people. 2/3 of the planet Earth's population will have a smartphone in their hands. If you don't have a mobile-first strategy today, I urge you to develop one very, very soon. This talk is not about mobile games. I'm going to talk to you about trends that are reshaping consumer expectations about the real world, because that's the trend that's starting to happen. People who use smartphones spend an awful lot of time on the internet. In the past couple of years, mobile operators around the world have rolled out what they call 4G, fourth generation services, fast internet on mobile phone. And in every market, one after another, we noticed a remarkable phenomenon, which is that consumers spend almost double the amount of time on the internet when they get a smartphone that has a connection to a 4G network. And as you're probably aware, mobile operators around the world are now contemplating the 5th generation, and that will give them 10 times faster internet on their phones, which means that the mobile phone is going to displace your TV set-top box, and the mobile operators are going to come after your cable operator for TV revenue. You're about to see a total transformation of the way entertainment is delivered to the home through the mobile phone. But that's not all. It changes consumers in other ways as well. The way we discover and find out about new things typically begins with the mobile phone. This is a very important point. This is a very, very important point. You know, it's an axiom of our time, a truism of our time, that every customer journey has a digital component at some point. Sure, we all get that. Everybody understands that. But what you must know about mobile is whatever happens in mobile stays in mobile. Here's a user behavior you will never see. No one is going to go on their smartphone and look for a lottery app, and then when they discover they don't have one in their state because the state hasn't launched it yet, then put their phone down, jump in their car, drive to a 7-Eleven, stand in line, and buy a lottery ticket. They're just not going to do that. No one does that. What that consumer is going to do is say, gee, I can't find that app, so I guess I'll play a different game. You're at risk of being substituted out. Your lack of participation in this venue is not a good thing long term. People are developing, cultivating different habits. Now, as Paul mentioned kindly in the beginning, I wrote a book about this phenomenon called Vaporized. We're replacing physical things with digital software. It's a gigantic phenomenon, but most of us can't see it because it's invisible, because we're talking about downloading invisible software over the air to a phone. There's nothing sold at retail. There's nothing tangible about this. So it's a phenomenon that happens largely outside of our notice, but it's a big phenomenon. It might sound preposterous until you consider that on Amazon, they now sell more e-books than hardbound and softcover books combined. The music industry now derives most of its revenue, by far the majority of its revenue, from streaming services. The map industry has been completely gutted by smartphones. No one needs to buy a map. You get a great map with your smartphone built in, and if you don't like that one, you can download another one for free over the air instantly. And my friends in the TV industry hate it when I say it, but television is being vaporized. And I don't just mean that people aren't buying DVDs. Of course they're not buying DVDs anymore. What I mean is that the majority of US households now subscribe to streaming video services. They don't get their TV from a TV company anymore. And not only that, we're not just vaporizing the content, we're vaporizing the infrastructure. Because you can launch a cloud-based streaming video service overnight. It's cheap, fast, and easy to do, and that's why we're seeing thousands of streaming video services being launched on a worldwide basis. This is not limited to the US or North America or Europe. This is a global phenomenon, this shift to VOD, video streaming services delivered over the web. It's a gigantic shift, and of course it's reflected in consumer behaviors. We see the young generation is simply abandoning television altogether. They are losing the habit of watching TV. The smartphone is supplanting television. It's the first place they go for information. The term we use in economics to describe this phenomenon is demand destruction. Now, we all know about the laws of supply and demand, but we don't tend to think too much about demand destruction. It's actually a really rare phenomenon. Until recently, the only example that economists had of demand destruction was when someone buys an electric car, because they no longer need to buy gasoline, and so their demand for gasoline is destroyed. They now have an electric car. They're just no longer a consumer of gasoline. The mobile phone is doing demand destruction on an epic scale. And it's not limited to maps and music and media and that stuff. It's actually happening to hardware. As crazy as it might sound, we are destroying demand for hardware. The mobile phone, the smartphone, is supplanting our need to purchase hardware. The first victim of this, of course, is the computer. We hit peak computer in 2011. Because most of what you need a computer to do, you can do on today's smartphones. And that's increasingly true as the smartphones get more and more capable. So you're seeing a whole group raised now who doesn't have a computer. Their access to the internet will never come through a PC. It will start with and end with a mobile device in their hand. But that's not all. In the last 10 years, during the iPhone decade, your mobile phone has absorbed the functionality of dozens of consumer electronics devices. It has destroyed our demand for those devices. If you think back to 2006, before the smartphone, remember when you would walk down the aisle of an airplane? And when it was mid-flight, maybe on your way to the bathroom or something, you'd walk down the aisle and you'd see people who had Game Boys and little DVD players and so forth. All of that stuff is gone. It's all been absorbed into the functionality of the tablet and the smartphone. And so today when you walk down the aisle of an airplane, all you see is smartphones and tablets. Some airlines are taking the screens out because their screens can't compare to the screens people carry around with them. And look at the impact on the consumer electronics industry. For the companies that manufacture GPS units and digital cameras, and voice recorders and MP3 players and all those other digital gadgets, they've seen double-digit decreases in sales. This has crushed the Japanese consumer electronics companies. Great brands, formerly great brands, like Sony, where I used to work, Panasonic, Sharp. These companies are in serious jeopardy because they have lost the ability to make money selling consumer electronics. The smartphone has absorbed all of that revenue. Sometimes when I talk about this, and I get excited about it, I start talking about financial services and insurance and even car ownership, things that are being vaporized. And people say, wait, where is this going to stop? And I answer them by saying, it won't stop. It won't stop. In 2014, Apple announced that they had more than 1 million apps in the App Store. Right now, that number stands at 2.6 million. By 2020, that figure will exceed 5 million. That's 5 million things that used to be sold in physical form that are now being sold in digital form. And that means no factory, no shipping container, no port, no truck, no warehouse, no retail shelf. All of that is being vaporized as these things are now being delivered digitally over the phone. We are conditioning an entire generation to start and end their consumer experience with the smartphone. I believe that whatever can be vaporized will be. And that's why I have to talk to you about retail. Because retail is being vaporized right now. You see, during this iPhone decade, we didn't just get used to using the smartphone, we also got used to seeing something else. When I drive around the Midwest, I notice that store after store after store is closing. I spent Monday with the chief strategy officer of the most prestigious retail chain in North America. And we talked about this trend, and he said, we're going to continue closing stores. Every retailer in North America has too much square footage. We are going to continue to shrink our stores and grow our digital presence. Now, I share this with you because this industry, the lottery industry, is single-threaded on one point of distribution. Everybody else in retail is moving to omni-channel. They've already moved past multi-channel. Now they're in omni-channel. You're still in mono-channel. Your channel is dying. The red line on this chart shows the growth, or the non-growth, in physical retail since 1998. The blue line shows 4,500% growth in digital commerce. Physical retail isn't growing. If your business is dependent on that channel alone, you're not growing. And if you're not growing, you're going backwards. You're dying. Now, the retailers are keenly aware of this, and they're scrambling to introduce digital technology into the store. And there's really a great renaissance happening in the retail environment, and you're a part of that through the API, so good for you. You're on the right trend there. But retailers are scrambling to find ways to bring digital experiences in. Smart mirrors, things that predict what you're going to do next, apps that integrate with beacons in the stores so that they can follow you and track you and so forth. They're trying to figure out what they can do to shore up their decaying, crumbling retail business. You're even seeing them vaporize things like the cash register. So now when you go to a store, the clerk isn't sitting behind a desk with a cash register. Clerks are on the floor where they should be, talking to people. That's great. That's a trend in the right direction. But what's even more shocking is when the store itself gets vaporized. This is my favorite example. It's from 2013. A retailer in South Korea called Home Plus. This is a company that was #2 retailer, and they were purchased by Tesco, the big UK company. And they wanted to grow to be #1, but they couldn't get any real estate outlets, because if you've been to Seoul or Incheon, you know that those cities are absolutely booming right now, and there simply aren't any retail shops available. So they did something smart. They said, let's take the store where the customer is. What you're looking at in this picture isn't a retail store. It's a subway station in Seoul, Korea. They covered the glass walls with full-size, life-size photographs of products. The person in the middle, that gentleman in the middle, he's boarding the train, he's getting in the train. But the young man in the foreground, he's making a purchase. He's actually shopping in a virtual store. And when he arrives at his destination, there'll be someone with 2 bags to greet him. They'll deliver it directly to him. This was so successful in Korea that Tesco took the concept and applied it. And again, what you're looking at here is not a retail shop in the UK. This is Waterloo train station in London. They covered the columns with life-size photographs of products at Tesco, and you can see that woman in the foreground is scanning the barcode of an image, making a purchase with her phone. And when she arrives at her destination, there'll be someone to greet her with the purchases that she made. So retail is being transformed by the smartphone, and that's not all. The other thing you need to be aware of is that games are being transformed by the smartphone. This is a massive trend. And again, there's been a lot of resistance to it. I've spent my entire career developing interactive entertainment. And back in the early 2000s, I started talking about developing mobile games. I brought some of the first mobile games to the US and to mobile operators around the world. Now, at that time, my friends who were building console games and PC games and internet games, they laughed because they said, look, a mobile phone's terrible. It was a terrible environment in 2000 for any kind of entertainment. But what we knew was that the mobile phone was going to double and double and double and double in power, and the networks were going to get faster and faster and faster, and we were right. Today, here's a chart that shows you how revenue breaks down in the video game business, not the regulated game business, the video game business. And you can see it's an almost perfect balance. The gray, that's console games. That's the Sony PlayStation, Microsoft Xbox. The green, that's PC and internet gaming. And the blue, that is mobile phone and smartphone gaming. What's interesting about this chart is that as of last year, 2016, mobile is now the single largest source of revenue for all game companies. This has transformed the way companies like Electronic Arts operate. It's not just that the games themselves have changed or the distribution channels changed. We actually create games in a completely different way. We now operate games as a service as opposed to doing a shrink-wrap fixed product that sits on a shelf. That's over. Now games have to be responsive. They change in real time. And by the way, this trend's not done. This trend isn't done. When we look forward just a couple of years, you can see that mobile games are going to grow about 50% greater in the next 3 years, and soon we'll be verging on half of all revenue spent on games will come from mobile. Now, when you talk to people who identify as a gamer, people who say games is my favorite entertainment, we tend to think that that's somebody like a teenage boy with zits who's like living in his mom's basement in New Jersey or something. Like, we tend to have this idea that that's a young man. That's an outdated concept. In fact, when you ask people who self-identify as gamer, where game is one of their preferred kinds of entertainment, you find that it's roughly even across the demographic segments. This is the United States. And you can see in every demographic segment, the number of people who identify as gamers hovers between 20 and 30%. And of course, there's much broader demographics behind that, because there are many people whose preferred mode of entertainment isn't a game, but maybe it's one of their top 5 or 6. They wouldn't show up in this chart. So games actually reach about 65% of the US population. But mobile has the broadest demographics by far. On a global basis, 1.7 billion players of mobile phones, half of them female, and we're well on our track to 2 billion mobile players. If you want to reach this audience, you need to be where they want to find you. Of course, all that growth and all that new revenue has led to ferocious competition. An unbelievable, staggering number of mobile games are introduced. 500 new games are launched on iTunes every single day. 500. 1,000 new apps. About 40,000 apps a month, actually, is the figure. And that's just on Apple iTunes in the App Store. Actually, Google Play has even more, even faster growth. That competition, of course, spurs incredible innovation. You must focus on this. This is what is changing your audience's expectation. You must pay attention to the games that are coming out, because the competition, when there's 500 new games launched a day, most of those games sink without a trace. You've got to do something extraordinary to capture people's attention, keep their awareness, and stick out. And so what the game companies are doing is they're shifting from the old style, what we used to call waterfall, where they would design a game, they'd build the game, they would then test the game, and then they'd press a gold master, put it in a jewel box, shrink wrap it, and put it on a shelf. That concept is dead and done. Today, everybody in the game industry, and more broadly in the software industry, is shifting to agile development with cloud-based software, which means that you can update continuously. It means it changes the way you sell and market a service, because you're in a continuous conversation with your customer. You're constantly innovating. Every day you can release new code. Every day you can test new ideas. Every day you can ask the customer, did we get it right? Did we get it wrong? And the customer says, yeah, you got that part right, but I don't love that. They don't tell you that explicitly. They tell you through your behavior. On a networked environment, you can track user behavior and see where you went wrong, fix it, release it, push out new code. Cloud innovation and agile development mean that we can be in continuous mode of innovation, continuous conversation, continuously improving our products. You think regulators have a tough time keeping up with us now, with the level of innovation we have now. They are going to need roller skates to catch up with us when we do cloud-based gaming. There's no regulator on the planet that can move at the rate that the mobile game developers move. Now, all this rapid change has caused users to have new expectations. That's because we're operating in a completely different context. We're using different hardware they own, smartphones. We have a completely different UX. You heard about that today from Pollard. Completely different delivery model and a completely different mode of consumption. This means it's a different customer. We've changed the customer, and that customer has completely new preferences on how they want to be talked to and how they want to be entertained. They want to touch the screen. They want to be able to share. They want to like. They want to have social elements. Sue talked a little bit about that a moment ago. They want to use location. The games have to be location sensitive, location aware. They need to dynamically change based on where they are. People want free. They want to be able to try a game before they pay. Your games cost too much money for them. That's a barrier for people to try them. When there's 500 new games launched every day, you're in the business of removing barriers. You want players to try your games first. And we're moving into augmented and mixed reality. This is a photograph I took. It's not a great photo, but that's because I was holding two phones at once. One, I was trying to show this, and the other phone was taking the picture. What you're seeing here is a company called OctaSense. OctaSense is one of the leaders in augmented reality. You've heard about this. It's about to come out. You're going to see Apple make a huge push later this year in augmented reality. Everybody's heard about virtual reality. Augmented reality is where you overlay virtual things on the real world. And so in this example, that's Dave on the right. He's the founder of OctaSense, and you can see him in the background. You can see him on the screen. But on the screen, he's standing next to Rihanna. And it was so lifelike. It was like Rihanna was hanging out with this guy, Dave. I couldn't believe how incredibly lifelike it was. Obviously, you can see in the background, Rihanna was not in the room at the time. That mirror is a reflection. It shows me taking the picture. So augmented reality sounded like science fiction a year ago. It's actually coming out this year. You'll see Apple make a big push there. Another area is virtual reality, and we're already developing prototype games here. This is a giveaway unit, VR unit, that could be co-branded with the lottery. In other words, you could be the company that brings virtual reality to your customers, and it could be branded with your identity. You could give them a special way to get onto virtual reality through their smartphones. That's an opportunity for you. And of course, consumers are now being accustomed to different interfaces that don't even involve a phone, because we're also going to vaporize the phone. And so voice-based command like Alexa from Amazon, and text-based command, like all of the conversational commerce that is now happening with chatbots in messaging apps. These are the latest trends in UX and UI evolution. We need to be aware of those trends. I'd argue that our industry hasn't really caught up with internet games yet, and already the audience is moving on to virtual reality, conversational commerce, augmented reality. We're one generation behind already, and now they're moving on to the next generation. We'll be 2 generations behind by the end of the year. Your customer is developing completely new expectations for the kinds of entertainment that they can get, how they get it. They want new types of gameplay, new incentives to try games, new ways to discover and share what they like, new ways to interact, especially with other people. When you get it right, the results are remarkable. Pokemon Go was explosive. It was the biggest game in North America by far, but what's most important is they went from 0 to 60 in a few seconds. Like, they became the biggest game in a matter of days, not even weeks. And on a global basis, same thing, 500 million downloads, 20 million active players every day. Pokemon Go actually, in terms of usage, outpaced the very popular messaging apps. Those are the apps that your teenage kids are spending all their time in. Pokemon Go actually doubled that amount of time. And Pokemon Go broadly reached across all demographics. So the chart on the left shows the broad demographic reach. It was not limited to teenage boys, as the cliche would go. It actually appealed to people of all ages and both genders. But what's most important about this chart is on the right. It's that little green corner on the chart on the right. Pokemon Go brought in about 25% new players who had never tried a mobile game. If you do it right, it's going to get people excited and draw them in. That's how you get new players. Folks, that's why I'm so excited about the digital opportunity for lottery. We need to reach a new generation. If we do it right, we can actually get them excited about these games. They'll share it, they'll turn it on, they'll turn on other players and bring them in. Now let me turn my attention to the land of the dinosaurs. You know where I'm going. When you talk to mobile game players and ask them about the lottery, they look at you like they're puzzled. They don't understand what you're talking about. Those games are too expensive to even bother trying. There's no free version. The odds suck. They do. Come on, admit it. We don't create a lot of winners. We create millions of losers. That's a terrible message. Consumers understand that. Mobile games make everybody feel like a winner. I lose money too fast, particularly the digital games, because you can play them so quickly. We need to give people more free plays, more replays, more near wins, more opportunities to extend their entertainment experience. Infrequent bonuses and no virtual prizes. Our obsession with cash prizes means we've overlooked the major driver of mobile games and free games, which is virtual prizes. There's nothing stopping a lottery from adding virtual prizes to their inventory of prizes. Consumers have already demonstrated by the hundreds of millions that that's what they want to do. Give them what they want. There's no way to collaborate. There's no way to do team play. There's no way to do head-to-head or competitive play. And the graphics, don't get me started with the graphics. I was at ICE, and I was just shattered a month ago at ICE to walk through a floor of 10,000 identical slot machines that are regurgitating graphics from 100 years ago. In San Francisco right now, they have an exhibit of old slot machines from the mechanical era. Some of them are 100 years old. And you know what? These old icons like Bar and the Flaming Seven and the cherries and all that stuff, those graphics are on those original machines. We're taking a kind of like an artifact from a bygone mechanical era and we're replicating it in the digital era. That's not a great way to communicate with this audience that's looking for new experiences. When I look at the buttons on the terminals, to me they look like they were designed by somebody in the Soviet Union in the 1980s. And then there's this obsession we have with paper. Folks, you got to vaporize it. Now, kudos to you. The API, that's where you're heading. Like, I totally see it. I was so excited. That's why, Tony, I came over to talk to you about it. It's exactly the right move. You've got to get in that. You got to go in that direction. Paper's finished. You show a teenager today an instant scratch-off game, and they go, "Wait, I don't get it. Where's the game? I get stuff under my fingernail. Like, how's that a game?" They don't understand how there's a game. It doesn't speak to them in the vernacular that they've been conditioned to. Remember, these people spend tens and tens of hours every week playing games on their phone that are teaching them a visual vernacular they're accustomed to. We need to speak that same language. Now, I get it. Change is hard. I get that, truly, trust me. I've been launching digital services for 25 years. It's always hard. Every industry I go into, there's tremendous resistance, there's tremendous old habits, there's tremendous things we need to preserve. I understand, and I sympathize. I'm here to help you. Change is hard, but remember this. Take 1 minute to contemplate that the consequences of not changing are far worse. Far worse. Think of all the things we don't do. I've told you about the new habits we've had, but let's take just 1 minute to consider all the habits we've discarded in the iPhone era. We no longer use a telephone directory. We no longer use payphones. We no longer remember phone numbers. We no longer use address books and day runners. We no longer send faxes, unless it's the California DMV, because they don't take email or text messages. So you actually have to go find a fax machine to talk to the DMV. We don't buy DVDs. We don't buy fixed media of any sort. We don't buy disposable cameras. We don't develop film anymore. We don't visit a travel agent. Good luck finding a travel agent. They don't exist anymore. We don't get lost. The generation growing up with smartphones is never going to know what it means to be lost in a foreign city and have to find your way back to your hotel. We don't keep diaries. We don't own encyclopedias. We don't tune in to primetime television. Now, yesterday, Charlie McIntyre gave you a grave warning. He said at the very end of his talk, and I think he's absolutely right. I'm going to underscore that point right now. The fate of the lottery is in your hands. And either this group of lottery directors, is going to take responsibility for driving the evolution of the lottery into the 21st century, or we're going to become just another habit that people have discarded. To do that, we have to rethink everything. Now, I've had the good fortune in the past couple of years, my colleagues and I have been invited to work with several U.S. lotteries to develop innovative game concepts. And what I intend to do, I promised the folks at NASPL that I would come back and share the learnings with you, and I intend to do that at the very next NASPL event. I will share some of the findings we've had, what we've learned about developing brand new game concepts that have new game formats, new play styles, new locations, new screens, new ways to communicate, new ways to connect, all within the regulatory framework. All of this is legal. We work with the regulators every single day to develop and adapt our game concepts to what's permissible. Now, at the beginning, Paul mentioned that I wrote a book, Vaporized. I'm happy to tell you that that book was distinguished last year as the International Book of the Year for 2016. And I have a special offer for the people in the audience. If you're interested in what I have to say here, for $2 today, you can buy the book on Amazon, the digital version, of course. For $2, you can download on Amazon today. So that's a special offer for the PGRI audience. I hope you'll go do that. I'm Robert Tercek, and it has been my privilege and honor to talk to you today. Thank you.